So before I got pregnant with Mesa, we were actually pregnant like back in May. Or let me rewind. It was April. And so we had gotten, and I knew we wanted to start trying soon. Like we got married really young. Um, we were 22 years old, and I knew like because we were getting married so young, I knew I wanted to like, let's wait. I told Parks, I was like, I want to wait at least 10 years.
Mhm.
And so sure enough, 32 years old, I had Mesa. But anyways, so it was probably like a year and a half ago, I knew we were probably going to start trying soon. And really surprised to have found out like we got pregnant immediately. And it was like right after I was section hiking the Appalachian Trail and literally got pregnant in the motel in Gatlinburg. And was so excited and kind of shocked that it happened so quickly for us. And then it was kind of it was it was a sensitive subject because my twin sister had been trying with her husband for like 2 years, and she knew that it was just very quick and easy for us. So there was just like a lot of mixed emotions there when I told her I was pregnant, and a lot of mixed emotions for her as well as she processed that. And then literally 3 weeks later, she calls me and she was just like, "Oh my God, Emily, I'm pregnant." And they'd been trying for 2 years. And we literally were like, "Oh my gosh, our babies are gonna be 3 weeks apart."
Yeah.
And so literally it was like, now fast forward to our birthday. So we're summer solstice babies. So we decided let's wait to like share her news with our family. I had already told my family that I was pregnant. And we decided to share the news about her pregnancy on our birthday. And so we had the whole family together. Parks is actually out of the country in Argentina. And this was like, he was on a hunting trip with his dad. And so I was like, you know what? I'll spend my birthday doing this. It'll be super fun. I'll be with family. And we are all going on a family trip anyways. Like, in just a couple days, we were about to go on an Alaskan cruise.
Wow.
And so anyways, we were just hanging out. We went to the lake at my parents' place, and basically when they brought out the birthday cake, we were singing happy birthday, and then we bring out a birthday cake that says Sarah's pregnant. And my mom like literally almost passed out. She was so excited. And so like literally what's so spooky is like all of this happened within a couple hours. So like we're celebrating, we're all having so much fun. My best friend, or both of our best friends from growing up, is in town celebrating with us, and my whole family's there. And then we go out on the lake. I come back and I notice like I'm starting to bleed like quite a bit, and I had some spotting beforehand, and I was trying not to freak out, but it was enough to where like I I pulled my mom aside and I was like, I'm not trying to like ruin anybody's, you know, celebrations, but like I'm really worried and I think I need to go to the hospital. I don't let's not tell Parks about it. He's literally about to be on a flight to Argentina. Like he's at the airport at that point. And so my mom drove us to the hospital, and basically like I wasn't hurting, I wasn't cramping, but then, by that time that we were waiting, in the waiting room, like that's when I started feeling some pain. And then basically found out that we had lost the baby. And so like I had to tell Parks while he had already boarded the plane and he went to the bathroom in the airplane, and I told him, and it was just like we were just it was kind of an out of body experience. Like I was just like, I have to survive the next few weeks because he was going to be gone for 2 weeks, and in that time frame, like I was going on a family vacation, and I was just like, this is going to be the hardest 2 weeks of my life. And so I think I literally would not have gotten through it without the support of my family and my friends. And what's so weird is like a lot of my friends live in Seattle, and so our cruise was leaving from Seattle. And so like I saw all of my best friends within like that week. They all were there for me just to like hold me in such a safe and supportive space until Parks and I could be together finally. And just kind of like grieve together, process that loss. And so then I was just like, I'm not, I'm not sure. I felt kind of rushed. Like I was like, I want to get pregnant within a certain time frame because I'm a wedding planner and like I'm trying to plan it around wedding season. And then I was just like, screw that. Like there's no planning this. But I did know like I wanted to try and process things a little bit because it was such a loss and I it was just like a mental just such a mind game to just kind of navigate all of that while also, thinking about when are we going to start trying again. And so, to my surprise, 2 months later, found out I'm pregnant again, was shocked, was not expecting that at all. And it was funny because like we were at the rock climbing gym, my friend was like, I started feeling kind of sick at the rock climbing gym, like really sudden. And this was before I knew I was pregnant. And my friend, like, I went outside to get some air and she was outside with me and she's like, "Do you think you're pregnant? Like, could you be pregnant again?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know." And so it was the next day, like, I was still a couple days out from my expected period. And I was like, I'm just going to take a test because I had some still from before. And I decided, I was like, I'm gonna grab Parks. Like, if I'm pregnant, I want him to be there with me when we find out. And so, sure enough, I didn't even tell him that I peed on the stick. I just was like, I just peed on the stick, was waiting, told Parks to come in the bathroom, and I was like, I just took a pregnancy test, and I want you to look at it with me. And he's like, "What? Do you think you're pregnant?" And I was like, "I don't know, but like my friend Natalie really got in my head, and I'm like, she thinks I might be. I mean, I've started feeling nauseous randomly. And like, sure enough, we look at it, it's positive, and we're just like, holy crap. Um, and I was so on edge, like for the whole entire first trimester. Like I was kind of like burying the thought and the idea of being pregnant really deep down because I just was like, I can't deal with another loss. Like, and I just knew because the first time I was 10 weeks along when we lost that one. And so it was just like every milestone, every week, that went by without any spotting, without any bleeding. I was just like, okay, I don't want to get my hopes up. And I really did not bond with the idea of being pregnant until probably my second trimester.
Mhm.
And so it wasn't until like I started feeling her kicking where I was just like, oh my gosh, this is real. This is happening. And so I mean, it really like overall, it was a fairly like boring pregnancy. It was just very, your standard, like I had nausea. I never threw up. But I was dealing with nausea all the time and it sucked because as a wedding planner, it was like peak wedding season and I'm navigating like first trimester symptoms and I'm exhausted. I feel like crap all the time. I'm like wearing my little like nausea bracelets everywhere I go. And I was just like eating constantly because as soon as I felt hungry, I went downhill pretty quick. Um, and so like navigating pregnancy during wedding season, working like 25 weddings that year. And there's times where I'm like, I'm literally walking like 15 miles in a day and I'm pregnant. And I'm just like, I am not doing this ever again. But yeah, things like progressed and started feeling her kicking, and that was so magical. And that was like the daily reminder that I needed too, as well, to just be like, okay, like she's okay. She's okay in there. And so once I hit that point, I was feeling very hopeful. But also I don't think your anxiety ever fully goes away after experiencing a loss until they're like breathing in your arms. Um, So once we hit the second trimester, I was like, okay, I think we should probably start thinking about like what kind of birth experience do we want? And during the first pregnancy, I had started toying with the idea of a home birth, and I never thought that I would be one to consider a home birth. Um, and I actually reached out to a local midwife, and there's really only one. We're in North Carolina, and it's a super gray area when it comes to like home births. And technically, it's illegal, but there's really only one midwife in the high country that is willing to do home births. And so we met with her and we loved her. And so we started seeing her throughout our entire pregnancy. And what I loved so much about that experience was like how educational it was. Where like I still was going to all of my appointments at like the local hospital, women's health clinic in Boone, because in case I needed to be transferred for whatever reason to the hospital, I wanted to make sure like I had a relationship with them and they knew me. Um, and so I ended up doing juggling both appointments. So the women's health clinic and then my home birth midwife. But I loved the home birth midwife experience because she was so educational, where like I did feel like I was kind of on a conveyor belt, like it was just like it was very kind of surface level, relationships and there's so many midwives at the women's clinic that like you didn't know who was gonna deliver your baby, and they don't really educate you. They're just like, okay, yep, everything looks good. And then I'm like, okay, but like this is my first pregnancy. Like I have no idea what to expect. Like what's normal, what's going to happen when I hit this point and then this point. And so what I loved about the home birth midwife was just how personable she was. She got to know Parks and I as like a couple, like really got to know us and really educated us too on just like what to expect throughout pregnancy and then for labor and delivery as well.
Mhm. Can I ask
Um,
a question real quick?
yeah,
Was she a certified professional midwife or was she like not licensed in any way?
so is she's been doing it for like 27 years. She's delivered like 300 and something babies, and she is, I guess technically, like she's not certified because it's illegal, but she's got all the credentials, you know what I mean, to be a really, like, I felt very safe and supported by her.
Yeah.
And I felt like we were in such good hands. And just the fact that like every time I met with her, you just could tell she really knew her stuff
Yeah.
and has so much experience, had been doing it for 25, 26 years, ever since she had her first when she was like in her 20s.
Mhm.
um, and she was quirky and we loved her, and it was just like, yeah, it was definitely more of an experience that felt aligned with who Parks and I are. And I think people would ask me, and like I definitely had family members who were very concerned about the idea of us, having a home birth, like the fact that we're 25 minutes from the hospital, um, and also some family members that are in the medical field. They're just very like, you have to have a baby in a hospital. That's too risky. But I think I just really wanted to experience the raw and natural power of birth in my own home. And I just went into it with the mindset of like completely trusting my body and my baby that we can do this and we can do this together. And so once we hit the third trimester, I started like slowly getting everything together. Like I was getting the nursery together, full on nesting mode. I was psychotic. Um, and I would really poured so much time and energy and effort into like creating a really magical birth space. And, Parks and I made like affirmation signs to hang up on the wall together, twinkle lights. We had a birth tub and just like all of the tools we needed to be able to have like a really magical home birth.
Mhm.
And so fast forward to like 36, 37 weeks. at that point, it's like, okay, like this could be happening soon. And, I was doing all the things like eating dates and drinking raspberry leaf tea. And then, like, I think it was around 36 or 37 or 37 weeks, I started doing like primrose oil. I did all the things.
Me too.
Yeah. And I could tell like I was starting to feel I would get Braxton Hicks pretty regularly, but like there were times where it was happening very consistently where I thought I was going in it was false labor, but I was like, okay, is this it? Is this it? Um and it felt like because I didn't know what to expect, and I've never gone through labor before, people are like, oh, you'll know when you go into labor. And it's like, okay, well, I'm waiting for that aha moment. And it just never came. But at the same time, like these contractions I was experiencing were really intense and they're very regular. And then I would lay down, get some rest because I'm like, okay, this could be happening. I'm just going to try and get some sleep. And then it would just completely stall out. And then I would get so frustrated. And it was just like a mental like it would just weighed on me so mentally. It was mentally exhausting to constantly be like, okay, is this it? Is this it? And so I think it was, and then so eventually, after like the third false alarm, I had an appointment because at that point, you're seeing your midwives every week. And I was just like, let's just do a freaking cervical check. I want to know, like, am I progressing? Because my body's doing some crazy stuff this week. And I had started losing my mucus plug and like I was exhibiting all the signs of like, okay, labor could be happening soon. And so they checked me and I was already like 3 centimeters dilated and like 70% effaced. And that was at 37 weeks. And they're like, girl, you could be having this baby within like a couple of days. And I was like, oh my gosh. So basically, all these false labor like contractions, I am progressing and my body's getting ready to give birth. She's just not ready. And so after that, I just was like doing all the things. I was gardening, I was hiking, I even went climbing. Like I just was like, get this baby out of me. I can't wait to meet her. And another week passes with several more false labor like experiences. And I was going crazy, decided to do another cervical check. And at this point, I was now 38 weeks and 4 centimeters dilated and like 80% effaced. And I was like, come on, let's do this. And I was just stuck in limbo until it was the day before my due date. Or, I don't know, I'm sorry, 2 days before my due date, where I had my last meeting with my home birth midwife. She had already, like, she's kind of shocked at this point that I'm still pregnant. And so I went to go see her and I was like, let's do a cervical check and another membrane sweep. And she's like, after my membrane sweep, she's like, you're 5 centimeters dilated. I'm gonna see you tonight. And I was like, okay. And I was like, make sure your phone's on. Like, expect a call from me in the middle of the night. Like, I will see you later. This is happening tonight. We were so ready. And so we ended up going to a friend's birthday party right after that appointment. And like all night at this birthday party, I was experiencing like really intense contractions, but they felt like what I had experienced before. And I was like, I'm not buying it until I know it's the real deal. And so we even played a prank on Parks, my husband, that night where I pretended my water broke. I like squeezed a bag of water between my legs in
Oh
front
my
of
gosh.
everybody. It was so funny. And then literally hours after I played that prank, I was in bed and I fully went into labor. And I was just like, I probably laid in bed. I got about an hour of sleep and it woke me up and like knocked the breath out of me. This contraction hit me so hard and it was probably 12:30 when this one hit. And I shot up, straight up into bed. And right when I did that, Parks walked into our bedroom because he was getting ready to go to bed. And I'm like breathing through this contraction. And he was like, is it happening? I was like, I think so. And then I got hit with another one that was like just as intense. And I was like, yeah, it's happening. This is it. And so we are frantically getting everything set up. And I like didn't know when to call my midwife, but I definitely texted her and I was like, hey, just a heads up, like I'm experiencing some really strong contractions. This is it. And it's by far different than anything I had experienced before. And she told me, she's like, if I don't respond to a text, just call me and I will answer. And so when she didn't respond to that text, I was like, let her sleep. Who knows how long this is going to be. But she did say, because I'm already 5 centimeters dilated, I'm like already halfway there, that labor is probably going to be pretty quick and intense for me. So we also had that in mind. And so eventually, um, like literally Parks is frantically setting up everything. I'm doing as much as I can, but like these contractions are hitting me so hard, so fast. And I called my mom. I remember calling my mom on the toilet. And I was stuck on that toilet for a bit. And I think you had that experience too.
I
Yeah.
did. Yeah.
Yep. And I was like trying to tell him, I was trying to talk to my mom. I could barely talk. Like I would have just a couple minutes of being able to be coherent and then she'd hear me moaning and like I was very vocal at this point through each contraction. And she's like, have you called your midwife yet? And I was like, no. She's like, you need to call your midwife right now. And I was like, oh, okay. And so at that point, I just like crawled to the birthing space and labored on our yoga mat. And Parks is still like, there's so much that he's needing to do. He's starting to fill up the birth tub. He's like, I had made him like a little labor checklist. So he is just like focused on this checklist. And my job was to call the midwife. And so, and I could barely, like, again, I could barely talk. So I was just calling. And the first call, it rang and rang and then went to voice. I didn't panic. At this point, it's probably like 1:30 in the morning. So it had been about an hour. And I called again and it rang and rang and I went to voicemail. And there are times where like, I was literally in the middle of a contraction and I left a voice message of me just moaning in the background because I couldn't hang up. Like it took every ounce of focus to get through a contraction. And so there's definitely a couple voicemails that I left my midwife of me just laboring. But I called again and then Parks came down and he's like, did she answer? And I was like, no, but I was trying not to panic. And I was like, she will answer though. Like she knows this is happening. She, said her phone's going to be all the way up. Like she's going to be here. Like she'll show up. And I kept calling and I was like, okay, Parks, maybe you should try on your phone. And he called. And then over the span of like probably an hour, we both had called like 20 times. And at this point, like I didn't know how much longer I could hang on. And I was so desperate to feel safe and supported in such like a vulnerable moment. And Parks was already on edge about the idea of a home birth, but he is just like so supportive. He's just like, as long as, our midwife is there supporting us through this, like I'm good. But like I feel nervous that there's like so much on me and I do not like I was like trying to convince him to like even catch the baby if that's what could happen. He's like, nope, I don't want to do that. He's like, let the midwife do that. And I was like, okay. So he was like, on edge. And I think he was really trying to protect my mental state in that moment. And I was trying to protect his. But at that point, we were both so anxious and we knew this baby was coming and we knew that we were 25 minutes from the hospital. And finally, I just was like, Park, she's not answering. She's not coming. And like we need to go right now. I like held on as long as I possibly could. And I couldn't even feel angry with my midwife at that point because I was so deep in a labor and I was like, I mean, an out of body experience at that point. And so But as soon as we made the call to go to the hospital, we were so relieved because we're like, okay, help is coming. Like we're going to get this baby out safely and it's not gonna be just up to us too. And but it was so disappointing because like I looked at this incredible birth space that I had created and all these plans that I had made in my head just completely out the window. Like I didn't even get to try. I mean, I think that's the part that just like really gutted me later when I was able to process things was like, yeah, I just didn't even get the chance. And so that was pretty, I mean, it was disappointing. And I remember like I felt abandoned in that moment. But I couldn't even feel any emotion about it until later. Um, but so we ended up heading to the hospital. We like barely had a hospital bag packed. Like we had some things, but not nearly it, basically nothing. I had like some clothes and I had some clothes for the baby. Um, and then like some phone chargers and stuff, but not much. And so we ended up like we were rushing to the hospital and it was probably 2:30 at this point. And luckily like nobody's out on the road, so we were able to just like get there pretty quick. I think we made it there in 20 minutes. But again, I don't even remember that car ride. Like I was just so in it and in my mind. It's wild when you're in it. And luckily Parks had called ahead while we were heading there and was like, "Hey, my wife's in labor. Like he's like, it feels like this baby's coming pretty quick." And I'm like screaming the whole time on the way to the hospital. And then we literally like we get to the hospital, we ditch the truck in front of the ER doors, and that truck stayed there for 3 hours. Like we literally just absolutely forgot about the truck. So we ditched the car. I made it through the front doors and I got hit with a contraction, immediately fell to my hands and knees and started like screaming and vomiting everywhere in front of all these poor people. And so they ended up wheeling me up to the hospital room. Um, they checked me and I was 8 centimeters dilated at that point. But like I was in so much pain and I think mentally I just was not in it. Like, and I knew as soon as I was in the if I had to be in the hospital, like the temptation to get an epidural was going to be so great. And I didn't have any of my like pain management tools with me because at home, like I had, my birth comb and my birth ball and like I had everything I needed to confidently like get through these labor pains, but I was completely raw dogging it the entire time. And so by the time I made it to my room, which I just was stuck on the floor, like the only way I could comfortably labor was on my hands and knees. And so anytime I wasn't on my hands and knees, it was so painful. I would throw up. And they like literally were like, "Honey, you need to get in the bed." And I was like, "I can't move." And then they couldn't even get my clothes off. Like it was just so intense, so quick. And and like as soon as we got to the hospital, this birth team was amazing. They were ready and they were scrambling. Like, I mean, they were like, "Yeah, this baby is coming." And so once I found out I was 8 centimeters dilated, I was just like, "Please give me an epidural." And they were like, "Are you sure? You're doing great." And I was like, "Give me the epidural." And they're like, "Well, we don't want to scare you, but like the doctor who has to who he's the one that administers the epidural, he's like, it's going to be at least 30 minutes, and we don't know if we're going to be able to hold off that long." Um, and I was just like, "Okay, well, if I have to have this baby naturally, I will. That was the plan anyways. But if I can hold on for 30 minutes, you guys are giving me the epidural." And so I held on. I got the epidural and it was like immediate relief. It was like I remember I started laughing because I was just like, "Oh my gosh, I'm like I can talk. I feel normal. Like I have clarity. Like I felt like I was back in my body again. Like it was wild to have experienced that amount of pain and then all of a sudden being like they're like, "Okay, well, you can, take a nap if you want." And I'm like, "What?" And so right after they had given me the epidural, they did a cervical check, and I was 10 centimeters dilated. So I had already labored to completion. But they had just like they were like, why don't you wait a couple hours, which I didn't even know you could do. You could, be 10 centimeters dilated and just not push and take a nap. And so they were like in the middle of a shift change. So they like wanted me to wait so that they could just kind of debrief everybody on what's going on and then like get those nurses and the midwife situated that's going to deliver the baby for
Okay.
us. So I ended up resting. They like told me to try and take a nap for like 2 hours. And I was just like, at that point, I was just so full of adrenaline um, that I really didn't get much rest. But at the same time, like I was in such a mental state beforehand that I was thankful to just like, let me just lay in bed for a second and like prepare, to have this baby mentally and let me just kind of get some rest. Plus, I knew Parks, we had both been up all night, all day and all night. So I wanted him to get rest too. But I think it was like an hour and a half later, I was like, Parks, I'm so ready to have this baby. Let's just do this. And so we told the nurses, I was like, hey, I think I'm like ready to do this thing. And so like, what do I do? Because like I had no idea. Like the urge to push never came with the epidural. Like I had no idea like, when do I start pushing? And they're like, "Oh, like we can monitor your contractions on the screen. So whenever we tell you to push, just push." And I was like, "Okay." So like within minutes they were ready. Like they were just like, "Okay, go ahead and start pushing." And so at first, um I didn't really know how to push. Like I knew how I wanted to push at home, but like when you can't feel anything from, the waist down and you're like stuck on your back in a bed and you can't move, it's just like I couldn't really feel what I was doing.
Mhm.
Which was hard. And so, they like kept kind of coaching me through, here's some different ways to push. And we ended up, I remember like seeing this video of like somebody who had an epidural, and what really helped them figure out how to push was doing like this pretty much a game of tug of war with the nurse. I don't know if you've ever seen one of those videos, but like I was like, will you play tug of war with me? And they're like, sure, let's do it.
Oh.
That ended up being a really big mistake because I was so exhausted because I mean, like it's already, even though you can't feel anything down there, like just pushing with all your might, over and over and over again
Mhm.
is exhausting enough. But then I'm like playing tug of war with this nurse and my arms are shaking like it is now like a full body, exercise. And I am just absolutely gassed by the time I hit about an hour and a half of pushing. And so I was starting to panic. Like I was just like, well, let me backtrack just a little bit. My twin sister, she ended up having her baby. She had a baby boy um late January, and she wanted a hospital birth, was never interested in a home birth, but was always so like my biggest cheerleader when it came to like, she loved the idea that I wanted to give birth at home and was so supportive of it. But she's like, not for me. I want the epidural. I want the hospital. And so her birth experience really affected me because she ended up getting an epidural, and she pushed for 5 hours and then ended up needing a C-section. And so that was like really in my head when I was in the hospital pushing. And so I just, I was like, you guys are going to make me do this for 5 hours and then you're just going to tell me that I need a C-section. And so, like, an hour and a half into pushing, I'm so discouraged and I feel like very defeated at that point. And they just like keep telling me, you're making progress, you're making progress. But I didn't believe them. I thought they were just saying that to keep like my morale up, keep like my attitude positive. But I just was like, I basically told them, I was like, I don't believe you guys. I was like, I think you're just saying that. And like, I'm not actually progressing at all. Like, it feels like I'm not progressing at all. And so they're like, okay, how about we get the mirror and you can see, you can actually see what we mean when we say you are progressing. And I was like, okay, let's do that. And so I guess most women don't want to see. And so they're like, yeah, if you're down to see what's going on down there, great. And honestly, that is what hit me. Like it gave me a second wind. Like I was like, oh my gosh, I do see. I see her little head, like just the tippy top of her head, and it was slowly inching its way out. And it just lit a fire under me. And so I was just like, okay, we're gonna put on some music, we're gonna make this fun, and we're gonna get this baby out. And so it was about another hour and a half of pushing, and we also changed to the pushing position. That was just a lot more um it was just a lot easier on me physically, and so I was like I didn't feel as exhausted pushing in this new position, and so I ended up pushing and another hour and a half later, so 3 hours total of pushing, and she finally had come out, and I didn't even feel her come out. Like it's just wild. Next thing I know, they're like putting this sweet little baby on my chest, and she's immediately starts crying, and Parks is right next to me, and we're just like in shock. I just remember saying over and over again, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. And I told them what I really appreciated about this birth team was like, they knew my situation. They were like, we know you wanted a home birth and we're so sorry you didn't get what you had envisioned for yourself, but we want to honor everything that you were wanting at home. So, tell us like what's on your birth plan. And so I was like, I want golden hour, skin to skin. I don't want I want delayed cord clamping. I even like told them I wanted them to like milk the cord too before they cut it so that like every bit of nutrients is in that baby. I didn't want a bath. I didn't want what's the goop that they put on their eyes?
The eye ointment.
Yeah, I was like, I don't want that. Like they were really, really cool with like I never felt pressured. They were so respectful, and like really honored all of my wishes, which was really great. And so I had her. She was on my chest, and I was literally that first hour goes by and you're just in pure bliss, and you're just like everything else around you just doesn't exist. It doesn't matter. I mean, you still feel like the discomfort down there, but like, the epidural really helped. And so the first like 10 minutes, I was just like I just had tunnel vision. Like it was just me and my baby. And then I like started to look around, and I could tell like the nurses had some like concerned looks, and the midwife had a concerned look. And then I looked in the mirror, and I saw like I was losing a ton of blood, and they were stuffing me with gauze. Like I felt like a Build-A-Bear. Like they were just shoving so much gauze in me, trying to stop the bleeding. And that was when I was just like, I turned to them and I was like, is this normal? Am I okay? And they're like, you have some pretty extensive internal tears, and we're addressing it and needs to be addressed right now though. And so I'd like remember I kept telling Parks like, I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna be okay. Don't worry. Don't look down there. I even asked them to like move the mirror because I didn't want to see it either. Um, and so they ended up stitching me up, and I remember being so thankful for the epidural. Like I just didn't feel any of that. And then the second issue came, which was my placenta was completely stuck, and the cord was really short too because it was like all the way on top of my uterus. And so the cord was short, and the I don't know why the placenta was stuck, but like they literally had to give me a shot of fentanyl, and had to like literally go into me and like dig it out. And again, I was just like, thank God I had an epidural, and thank God I was at the hospital, because if I had delivered at home, which I probably would have delivered her no problem at home, but it would have been all of like the aftermath of just like, that's when all the issues would have happened. And so we would have had to be transferred to the hospital anyways. And we would have had a 25-minute drive of me just bleeding. And and they said, best case scenario, by the time you would have made it to the hospital with your tears, you would have ended up in the ICU. And I was just like, well, I'm glad I'm here. Um, which I don't know if they were saying all of that. Like, I don't know if they were like fear mongering a little bit because you could just tell like all of those nurses were like they all had their opinions on the home birth. And so I don't know if they were just saying that, but I did remember feeling very, very, very grateful to have been at the hospital instead of like dealing with all of that at home while also having a newborn.
Yeah.
And figuring out how to transfer to the hospital with a baby that I just had. And then I would have, Parks would have probably been, he would have, it would have been a lot for him. And I'm glad that it played out the way that it did.
Hmm.
Um, but like, it was incredible. They, they took such good care of me. I did end up getting like the shakes a lot after, like I felt pretty good, but it was like the first time they had me stand up, like my whole body just erupted into shakes and I was shivering and um I don't think I got sick, but I think I came close. But but yeah, it was such a wild such a wild experience.
Wow. Yeah.
Nothing went to plan, but it was still like so raw and like intense. And I mean, it's funny because like most women go into this, into their first like birthing experience, and you just have a vision of everything you're like almost trying to manifest it. You're like, okay, this is what's going to happen. And then none of that happened. None of it at all.
How did you process that? Like, especially because it went so different from what you had envisioned.
Yeah. I mean, I was pretty the thing was like I went into this always being open-minded because I was like, anything could happen, especially after seeing my twin sister go through her birth experience and how nothing went to plan. So like I knew, things could happen that you don't expect and you just need to like be very open-minded, and if you need to pivot, you pivot. And so I always like, I'm thankful that I had that attitude going into it, but I was pretty gutted that like I didn't even get to try to have my home birth. You know, Turns out it all happened the way that it needed to, but like, so basically, our midwife, the home birth midwife, she texted us at like 9 o'clock that morning and was like, hey, just woke up. Did things end up calming down? And I was just like, well, at that point, I was pushing. I was pushing and I was literally in the middle of having Mesa. And so did not respond to that text until until later. She was born at like 11:01 that morning on May 2nd. So it was probably like around 1 o'clock where I finally had like the capacity to be like, no, I just had
Oh,
a baby. Things did not calm down. And I was just like, what happened? Like, we called you and called you and called you. And she just was like, I felt like it was kind of fishy. I was like, for one, like, you're waking up at 9 o'clock in the morning when you said, like, you're having this baby tonight. Like, that was kind of weird. And I kind of have this theory that like she woke up and maybe she didn't make the best choices. And who knows? This is just what I think. I think she did not make some good choices the night before, slept through all of the calls, woke up in such a panic that she was trying to figure out how, like, what kind of story can I spin to excuse, me completely missing this birth. And so she had claimed that none of our calls went through. And I was like, none of them? Like, none on my phone, none on Parks's phone, like not any of our 20 plus calls that we made, like none of them went through. But yet you got my text
Mm.
and like I know and I even like looked on my phone, like I left at least 3 or 4 voicemails of me just moaning. Um and so I don't know. I just think it's fishy. I'm not saying she's lying because I don't know. I truly don't know.
Yeah.
But like Parks and I did a deep dive. We were like calling, our Verizon company. We're like, did these calls connect? They did. They went through. At least on our end, they went through, which means on her end, those calls connected to her phone. So it's like, I don't know what to believe. I just think it's a little fishy. And like all of our nurses at the hospital are watching all of this play out. And so, they and we're in a small mountain town. So like and there's only one home birth midwife. So like everybody knows who this woman is. And they deal with her a lot because if she's doing a delivery and they have to be transferred, she's there the whole time. She almost acts as a doula if you end up going to the hospital. So like people are very familiar with her. And so I just asked them, I was like, does she have a reputation of this happening before? Like, have you guys seen other couples going through what we're going through? And they all were like quiet. And I think because like they can't tell me too much, but they were just like, yeah, she has a bit of a reputation. And then there was one nurse who was like, I don't even work here full time, and I know at least 2 other couples that she had done this to. And at that moment, I just felt stupid. Like I just was like, how could I have trusted this woman with so much? And but then I was like, no, like I I like felt so safe with her. And like she had the credentials and like, the education and the knowledge and the experience. Like I think if she would have showed up, she would have done an amazing job. But like she didn't. She didn't show up. And I didn't want her to know that it was for the best because of everything, all the complications that happened afterwards. With me, Mesa was totally fine. She was literally perfect. Um, but yeah, it was such a weird situation to be thrown into, especially because we had paid her in full. Like by 36 weeks, she's on call, and that's when you like, we paid her $6,000.
Wow.
And then, she didn't show up. And so, she had just been like she tried to play it off like it wasn't a big deal either. She's like, "Oh, well, let me come by the hospital and like check you guys out and like check out the baby." And I'm like, "No, you're not coming here. Like, I don't want to see you." I was just like, I can't even. And then she was like, "Well, let's go ahead and like plan a call in the next few days to like discuss this." And I was like, "No, I am focusing on my baby right now. Like this is the last thing on earth I want to worry about." And
Mm.
so, but we knew, we had borrowed like the birth tub from her, so like we would have to confront her eventually. So it was a week later where we had scheduled to meet up with her at her office, and she was literally 30 minutes late. And I'm like 1 week postpartum with a newborn in the car.
Mm.
And I was like, at this point, I was like, I'm gonna be kind, like I'm gonna be super open-minded, I'm gonna hear her out. But then she made me wait 30 minutes, and like Parks and I were pretty pissed. So it was just like, okay, here's what happened. Like, here's the situation you put us in. And it wasn't until later where I was just like, it was dangerous. Like, I never felt like my life was at risk, but like I could have waited way too long at home, not knowing. Yeah,
Mhm.
luckily I was like in tune with my body enough to be like, I think we need to go.
Mhm.
Um, but like I could have waited, and I could have waited too long, and we could have ended up with a free birth. And that would be Parks's worst nightmare. But like, it just put us in a really bad position. And I told her, I was like, if you're in this line of work, like you need to have a reliable way of couples reaching out, like contacting you in these moments, like, you need a landline at least or a pager or something. Like, and I didn't mention to her that the nurses had told me that this has happened before. Um, because I just wanted to see what she'd have to say. And she was like, "This has never happened before. I don't know what happened." Like she just like went on. She's like, "I dropped Verizon. I even called them to see if like one of their towers went down." Like it just, she's like spun into this story that was just like too rehearsed, like
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm not saying she's lying, but like based on what the nurses have told me and what she told me, like there's definitely not there's she's not telling the full truth, like this has happened before to other couples. And luckily, she gave us a refund, so we're good, we're cool. And there's still a part of me that like fully supports what she's doing because which sounds weird coming from me because it's like she does give couples the opportunity to have a home birth that is supported by a midwife um when she shows up. But like, at one point Parks was like, like, dude, this was the Super Bowl and you were our star quarterback and you did not show up, like what are we supposed to do?
Yeah.
And so, luckily she smoothed things over. Um, and I could tell, like, because it's such a gray area in North Carolina, she did not want to deal with any legal system. So she was just like, take your money,
Mhm.
but it was, I don't know. That is, to be honest, I'm like still processing all of
Yeah, I would be too.
that. And like, it was cleaning up our birth space and taking down all my affirmation signs. And like, like I was so bummed. I
Yeah.
was just like, man, like I had all these candles that I wanted to light and I had records picked out for a record player. And there's like so many things that I wanted to do that I just like I didn't get to do. I didn't even get to try. I labored in my birth space for an hour. And that was it.
Yeah.
Um, so that part was hard. But like overall, it was I weirdly love our chaotic birth story. It is a story for sure, it's
Yeah. I feel like
wild and unpredictable.
I feel like that fits you too because you're like so adventurous. You had like the most adventurous birth story I've ever heard.
Oh, for sure. I
That's
know.
crazy.
And it's so funny because like, Parks and I have hiked several long trails and, out on a trail, you experience so like every emotion in the day and nothing ever goes to plan. So you just have to be so open-minded every day when you're out on a trail. Um, and so I think that like really prepared me mentally more than anything for not only labor and delivery, but motherhood too
Yeah.
because those first few weeks after having her, you have like 9 months to mentally prepare for a baby. And I felt like I did all the things to prepare for her arrival, but like once she was here, it's still such a shock to the system. You're just like, holy cow, my life has just completely turned upside down. And you're experiencing every emotion in the day. Like my anxiety was so intense those first few weeks. And I think, my hormones were just crashing, sleep deprivation. Like I really struggled mentally, but then at the same time, you're like looking at this perfect little baby and you're just so in love and you're still like riding that high of just being on cloud nine and like finally getting to meet her. But then, you're the next hour, you're like
Oh
sobbing
yeah.
because you don't know why she's crying.
Right. Things can change in an instant. Ugh.
Yeah, completely.
Have you guys connected with anyone else who used that midwife? Like, had you talked to anyone?
Yes. Um, yes, I did. And she showed up for them. So like I had connected with them before I had Mesa. So I haven't met any couples who went through what we went through with
Hmm.
this midwife. The ones that I did meet who had worked with her, they had good things to say.
Hmm.
She is definitely like quirky and not everyone's cup of tea. And so some people are just like, well, this is the only midwife who's willing to do this in the area. So like I'll just suck it up and work with her, even though they didn't really click with her or vibe with her very well. We always felt like we had a great relationship with her. And so, um, and other people did too. So like it was definitely, I did hear several times that they had wished they had gotten more support from her as far as like encouragement and like emotional support, but at the same time like I get it, she's a midwife, her main focus is to physically, support you more so than emotionally and mentally. So like I was never expecting her to act as a doula
Yeah.
at the same time as being, delivering my baby.
Yeah. Has this changed how you feel about home birth or if you would want that in the future?
Yeah, it has. I think if I lived somewhere else, I would be a lot more open to it. But just knowing what happened to me, like I do feel a little burned in a way. Like, I would, I don't know, hope it's so complicated because it's
Yeah.
like it's, I really long for that birth experience. And I think part of me mourns that I never got to experience it. But I also know what happened, like
Yeah.
she didn't show up. She was the only option. I guess, I could outsource. There's some midwives in Asheville that would be willing to work with us, but that they're 2 hours away. And it's just it's almost just too complicated. It's really hard to do it in North Carolina. Like,
Yeah.
um, if somebody who was more reliable and lived closer, like I would consider it again, but I also had so many complications afterwards that I think I'm scared. I don't know. There's just a part of me that's scared to do it again. Even though I want it so bad.
Yeah.
Like I'd love to give it another shot. But Parks, he's like he thrived as an only child, so he's like, we're only having one. We're not doing that again.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, we need to have at least one more.
Oh man. Yeah, that sounds like a lot. So how far postpartum are you again?
So Mesa's gonna be 8 weeks on Saturday. So yeah, it's almost 2 months.
Is there anything else about your postpartum that you want to talk about or how that's been since having her?
I mean, after those first few weeks, things just I think you just kind of adjust. You're acclimating to your new world and the baby is acclimating to their new world and you learn how to like read each other's, well, you learn how to read their cues. And so like I feel like I am a lot more confident in like how to take care of her, which makes me feel so much better mentally. So like postpartum, those first few weeks were really intense. My anxiety was horrible. But luckily, I feel like once I shifted, there was a shift after about two or 3 weeks where I was like, okay, I feel so much better doing this. And
Hmm.
like Parks has been such an amazing support system too. And like the fact that he works remote from home and like, he really didn't have any time off. Like once we had her, he was literally like working the next day just a couple hours a day, but still, like he
Yeah.
couldn't just fully turn off work and focus on being a father. He was like trying to take care of me, trying to take care of baby, and also like having to, log in on his computer a couple hours a day. So that kind of sucked. Um, but like other than the like for healing physically postpartum, like that was pretty intense as well. Like I remember the first few days, it felt like I had a bowling ball like in between my legs. Like there was so much pressure still.
Hmm.
I still pee myself all the time. Which is really fun. I'm like literally changing her diaper while I'm peeing myself, and I'm like, you and me both, sister. Who's gonna change my diaper?
Oh, things we go through.
But other than that, like I feel like very, I mean, I was really active throughout my pregnancy. And so I think that really helped me bounce back physically. You know, like the first few days were pretty rough, but I did recover pretty well. I feel like, you know, other than just I got to work on that pelvic floor, but other than that, like, you know, breastfeeding has been pretty good. She's such a champ at latching, and like she made it really easy for me. I still kind of go through the fear of like I hope I'm producing enough because she just seems like she wants to eat all the time.
Mhm.
And so we'll combo feed, we'll do formula sometimes, maybe like especially before bed to like really top her off so that we could sleep, which still doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like I feel like, you know, I've bounced back fairly quickly, and you know, I've slowly starting to get into like a workout routine again, which is nice. And just like trying to take care of me
Yeah.
because I think I'll be a better mom if I can like show up for myself and show up for her too, you know?
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to say about how this experience transformed you as like a person and a woman?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm a completely different person. It's like you know, I lived a whole life before I became a mom. And um and it was like a beautiful life. Like I would have been so happy continuing the route that I did if I decided we didn't want to have kids. But that somebody had said something to me a couple weeks ago that was like, you know, life without kids is, you know, or like, you know, life without children is easy,
Hmm.
and and you can be very happy living that type of life, but life with children is so fulfilling, and it's so true. Like I it is so much harder, you know, like I feel like Parks and I we kind of had life figured out before we had kids, and now we are just are it's completely out the window now. Like we are constantly on our toes. Things feel scary and like you're just very unsure, and I haven't felt that way in a long time about life, and the unknown is very exciting for us. And so we have enjoyed it a lot. Like we're just like, man, this is, you know, we're also very determined to be able to do the things that we were doing before you know, we had Mesa. We're just gonna figure out how to do it with her. You know, she's already gone rock climbing with us. She's already gone camping with us. Um, and she's not even 2 months old yet. So like, I'm proud of us for um, bringing like the beauty that we had experienced in our lives before we had her into her life now. Like it's a lot more fulfilling. It's a lot more special. Like the views that we've seen 1,000 times together that are beautiful, like just beautiful. But with her around, like it's so much more amazing to
Yeah.
like bring her to these places that are so special to us. Um, so like there's just so much about us that has changed. And I still think, you know, we're navigating parenthood together, which has its ups and downs. Like our marriage is so different, you know, like the whole dynamic has changed. We're now a family of three. Like it's it's um it's wild, and I don't know if I could put it into words
Mhm.
exactly. Like it's hard to explain how different you are. It's like a spiritual, uh, mental, emotional, physical change that is so intense, and so beautiful, and at times so ugly and brutal and incredible. Like All the above.
Yeah. Well said. Do you want to tell people where they can find you online?
Sure. So we have a private account on Instagram, but you're welcome to request a follow. So my last name is Carpenter, spelled how it sounds. And and so since my husband and I do long trails, we are Carpentrekkers on Instagram and YouTube. If you want to watch
Oh,
our long trail videos,
cool. I didn't
our
know
trail
that.
vlogs, we're on YouTube.
Yeah,
But it's Carntrekkers.
awesome. Well, that was the most epic story ever. That was pretty cool.
Hopefully, if we do this again, it's not as exciting as this one. I would like that.
Yeah, we'll see, won't we?
Yeah, we will. Stay tuned.
Well, thank you. Uh,
Thank you so much, and thanks for giving me the platform to share my story. It's definitely a crazy one, and birth, whatever route anybody, like just the fact that you went through pregnancy and was basically a portal into the universe, no big deal. You
yeah.
brought a whole human into this world somehow. It's such a beautiful experience no matter what your birth story looks like. So
Mhm.
thanks for giving women the platform to share their stories and just normalizing, what birth can look like, because I think it's almost like a snowflake. Like no two stories are going to be the same,
Yeah.
It's different for everyone.
Mhm. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you have a birth story that you would like to share on this podcast, please reach out to me on Instagram at Birth with Hope Podcast. Bye.